Hello, friends, and welcome to this new episode of the Creative Insider. In this episode, we have the very inspiring multicultural architect and entrepreneur Irgen Salianji. He and his partner Karolina have founded the award-winning architectural office Architects for Urbanity, which is based in Rotterdam. We went through so many topics, so I suggest you to enjoy the talk. It was super inspirational. I want also to thank you for the support so far. You've been super amazing. Thank you. And I want to remind you that the show is totally free. So if you like, you can support it by subscribing, sharing with your friends and family, and giving a good rate, wherever you're listening. You can also follow the show on Instagram at TCI Podcast, and the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page, The Creative Insider, where you'll find further guest-related information and other content which is creativity related. So thanks and enjoy the talk.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hello everybody, welcome to this new episode. Today I'm honored to present to you my new guest, which is Irgen Salianji from Architects for Urbanity. Hi Irgen, how are you?
Hi Georgi, thanks very much for having me here. And I think it's very exciting work that you have started doing with the podcast. I'm curious to see how it will evolve.
Thank you for coming. For the people they don't know, I know Irgen through the blog of Federico. So you are kind of the consequent guest of Federico, and I know you also because you have done a big project for Bulgaria, which is my country of origin. You have won the competition for the Varna Library a few years ago, right?
Yeah, that was in 2015.
Yeah, so it was very remarkable for me, that project.
Thanks. Yeah, Federico was nice. We worked back in 2015 at Meccano at the time. That's how we got to know each other, and we collaborate first time for the library.
You did a good job because you got the first prize.
Yeah, it was a very hard job. A team of 5 people working on it. And basically it was also a nice moment for us because we had lost so many competitions until that point. That basically it was a right moment for us to win something and set up an office basically.
I think that sounds very rewarding. But let's start from the beginning because I've been talking to you in the last few days, let's say weeks, to set up this podcast, and I think you have a very fascinating, also personal international story because you have been born in Albania, right?
Yeah. So basically, I am Albanian from the city of Pogradec, and in '97, basically, where Albania was going through a difficult, a big crisis, kind of internal revolt, we migrated to Greece, to Creta. And basically, I grew up from 8 years old on in Crete, and I studied in Greece, in Volos. And basically, then I also have the Greek nationality, and I also have a Greek feeling, let's say. So I feel both Albanian and Greek.
Yeah, I have the same thing because I've moved to Italy when I was 7. So I feel Bulgarian, but I have this part of my personality, which is a little Italian, also the culture because of my education. So I can see your point. And how did you, or when in your life you got interested into architecture, and how did you decide into involving yourself into studying architecture?
Basically, I grew up in Creta, in the island, so a very remote and kind of isolated location. So basically, I did not have many stimulus regarding architecture when I was at school, let's say. But somehow I had a friend whose father was a designer. And when we were like 15 years old or 16, we came in contact with the software, first of all. So we started doing AutoCAD and ArchiCAD almost like playing with the software. And that was my first, let's say, contact, and then looking for what the father of my friend was doing. And then when I was in high school, in a very small village in Creta, we had a very interesting director of the high school, and he managed. I asked him the books that were about the technical and the freehand drawing. There were some books back then to in order to qualify for the studies in architecture. And although we had no teacher to teach those lessons, this director found me the books somehow, and then I got these books, and I got very excited. Let's say, although I didn't understand much, it kind of lighted a spark. And then I went to study properly the freehand and the technical drawing to prepare for the exams. In Greece, you have to give these special exams for all the architecture schools, next to the normal exams that you give to qualify for any university. And then the moment that I got in, I went into this lab where we got a preparation for 2 years. Then it got more clear for me what was the aim, let's say, where I was going forward, what architecture start unfolding, let's say. And of course,
yeah.
And of course, when I was just before the exams, then we would also go into the website of the schools that we were hoping to get admitted. And then the curriculum, especially the curriculum in the school that I actually studied, got already started looking very exciting. You would see that there were lessons about drawing, about architecture, about art, about history of art, and I was trying to see if there is any mathematics or any physics. All these boring lessons that we had enough at school basically were not there, or for the most part they were not there, or they were mixed with architectural studies. So in that sense, it was a crescendo of getting to know the profession before entering the university, and getting excited on that way.
But this was your high school, sort of.
Yeah. So this was before the university, let's say. This is how I got in touch with what architecture. And of course, I remember there was also this, like the first time that I went to the university, like in September, on the boat, on the ship from Creta to Athens, there was this magazine in which they had interviewed Renzo Piano. It was at that time, 2008, when Renzo Piano first got the commission for the Stavros Niarchos Cultural Center in Athens, very big project. And so I was reading this interview in that magazine. I had no idea who Renzo Piano was, but that was a very, very influential, let's say, reading. It got me very excited.
Yeah, it sounds like a story of passion, because I started myself in a high school of art, and we got taught all this drawing in school, so I didn't need to push myself out of my comfort zone as you did. And at which university have you studied in Greece?
So I studied it's called the University of Thessaly. It's in the city of Volos. It's between Thessaloniki and Athens, geographically speaking. It was a young university back then. It was only 10 years in operation, or a bit less. So in that sense, I failed to qualify for Athens or Thessaloniki, which was my first choice, and so I went a bit not knowing what to expect. Not many people at the time had graduated from this university that I could ask and get feedback. But it turned to be a very exciting university. Basically, the personnel, the staff, the professors were very young and very driven. Just because they were setting up this university themselves, right? So they had set up all the curriculum, all the lessons, all the briefs themselves. And somehow it was really, really exciting to be there just before the crisis, and very, very open-minded and experimental curriculum. Yeah.
And I saw you have had an experience, an international experience, also in Italy. Which university did you go to in Italy, or did you take part of the Erasmus program? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So basically, on my third year, I did in the city of Reggio Calabria in south of Italy. I initially want to go to Milan, but I didn't get the spot because I didn't speak Italian at the time. And there were two spots for Reggio Calabria, and so then I decided to go with my best friend, and luckily enough there were these two spots where we could go together. So anyway, in Milan, not even myself I could go, I could qualify, but in this one we did go together, and that was actually a very nice decision. Not only because I met my partner there in 2011, but also because although the university was not that good quality, life was very exciting because we were a small group of Erasmus, like 50 people, 50 students, and the locals were very relaxed and engaged, let's say, with us. And it was very cheap.
Yeah, south of Italy are very welcoming people in general.
Yeah, it was a bit of a small society in the sense, small city. Like, I'm not sure if I would like to live there for long, let's say. But because of that, people were very close to us and very welcoming, let's say. So we felt very embraced, and because it was also very cheap context city, we also had the chance to travel a lot, and so as a total experience was, I think, very rewarding and very very rewarding basically.
But the way of being educated in Greece and in Italy, was it very different? Or because, for example, I always make this example that when I came to, I feel also very lucky because I got half of my education in Italy and half of my education in Germany. And the Italian architectural education I studied at the University La Sapienza in Rome, it was very focused on architectural theory, how to design, how to do a good design. And when I came to Germany, it was I studied in a University of Applied Sciences, so I studied more about how to get your projects constructed from the technological point of view. So that gave me a very good overview, and I got this combination of how to design and how to make it buildable, let's say. Where was it a big difference between the way you've been educated in Greece and in Italy?
Yeah, I think it's a very big discussion. For me also, I start having a very specific opinion about education. I think, and I think like most of the education that you can get as an architect is basically outside of the school. But I think the architectural education is extremely different within Greece. We only have, I believe, 6. Now there are more than 6 universities, but basically the old ones like in Athens or in Thessaloniki, and the new ones like in Volos or in Chania in Creta, they have a huge difference of approach between them. The newer ones being more open and alternative and free in the sense that they don't have a history to support and be binded by. And so the other universities in Greece, as far as I'm concerned, are more modernist in the old school sense of it. But in Italy, I think, I guess there are also big differences within the universities within Italy. But I think the university in Reggio Calabria was more focused on technical issues, but I would say in standard technical issues, like there was not much talk about innovation or experimentation. I saw it very flat in that sense, and there was a lot about law and regulations, a lot of lessons and a lot of attention given to that, which I also found a bit underwhelming. So in that sense, for me, education is nice when it kind of gives you options because architecture as a profession is so broad. You can become a photographer, an artist, an architect, technical person, and I think the university should give those options, should unfold those options to the students. In that sense, elective lessons I think are very important, and I didn't find that in Italy that much. But as I said, I think in such a big country like Italy, probably the universities focus, or they should focus more on the context where they are based, right? So if you are close to this in a touristic area, maybe you should have more lessons about tourism. If you are more in a industrial area, maybe there are more industrial lessons. I think that would be a nice feature. Although as a visitor, you would maybe not appreciate it, but as a connection to the local economy and to the local culture. So I cannot say much about Reggio Calabria because I was there only 9 months. But I think there were much to be desired, in the sense that, like as I said, I think it should be more about stimulus and about ways of doing things. And for the rest, then you should be able to choose yourself and explore outside of the universities.
But I think that in Italy, all the university differs very much among each other a lot too. Because, for example, I can tell you that in Rome there are two universities which are very, very different from one of each other. Because one is the old university, which is more established, as you said, and there is the new university where also the teachers are younger and more modern. And you have in Milan, you have the Politecnico, where they are also very oriented into more modern things, because also it's a city that's not so historical, so they focus on modern stuff. And in Rome, it's one of the best school if you want to more get specialized into restoration. So I think that's very, very different also inside, as like among Italian university. It's very different. But you've mentioned, because I've started the podcast also doing it in English, which is not my native language, to create this sense of awareness that in Europe and among the world, you have a great opportunity to exchange opinions and thoughts and experiences among creatives. And you mentioned that you met your partner in Calabria. Where's she from?
Yeah, so my partner Karolina, she's from Poland, and basically she came on the second semester. Although I was there for a year, so I was already there for 3 months. And so I mean, initially there was nothing about architecture in our relationship, but gradually we also started working together, and I think we managed to kind of build a collaboration between us, which was very helpful in the last years.
I think it's very cool to create also this. I know a lot of people that are in a relationship and in a partnership and between different countries, which enriches their work too. And you said, for example, I have the same opinion as you about the skills you can get, because I believe that the university, it's sort of like when you're going to take your driving license, and you learn how to drive, but then when you start driving on your own, it's a little different than what you have been told. And I see the university as something like a driving school for architects, and we learn the real deal when you start working. How did you do the transition from being a student to the professional world? How did you did that transition?
I mean, it was not so
like how your first job.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, I was always, not always, but from the first year of studies, I somehow started I always wanted to have my own office, let's say. So from early on, I started analyzing what you need to get, what you need to build, let's say, a portfolio, knowledge, etc. To achieve, let's say, to become a good architect, as I would think back then, and start your own office, right? So it was from the first year that I started. I wanted to do competitions. First year I couldn't manage. I remember this competition for that was for a kind of cafe in our university. But then from the second year on, I started slowly participating to competitions, and then finding friends to team up, and very often professors to kind of give us eligibility in some competitions. So basically, I have to mention that in order to understand like how I started. Let's say, so that gave me a lot of confidence doing competitions and improving. Of course, I was losing most of them, but that didn't matter. It most mattered that my skills were getting better and better, and that I was becoming able faster than my fellow students in kind of treating a project, right? So it was easier for me to read the brief or to make the first studies, etc. And so through that process, I also start researching a lot of references. So by the third year, let's say by the fourth year after the Erasmus in Italy, I already knew that I want to go again abroad and make an internship again with Erasmus. So that's what I did in the third year. I was in Italy. Fourth, I came back in Volos. On the fifth year, then I came to Rotterdam, and I had my first internship in an office called Monolab for 6 months. And then because I already consumed with this internship the winter semester, there was no point for me to go back in the fifth year in the spring semester. So then I applied again here in Rotterdam, and then I got an internship at OMA, which was basically a very inspiring moment in my career. Also because when I went at OMA, first of all, I managed to enter just with my own forces. Let's say I didn't know anyone to suggest me or recommend me there. And then when I went there, I saw that most of the people working there were from Harvard or from AA, big university. So very often they would ask me, "Where did you study from?" And they were expecting something great. And then I was trying to explain them when my small university was located. But that was nice, actually, nice feeling, because I felt when I came in Netherlands for my first internships, I felt like I had all the equipment I needed from my studies. So in that sense, that was a confirmation that it was a good decision to study in Volos. Because the young nature of the university and the open-mindedness, let's say, had prepared me quite adequately to integrate, let's say, into the workflow here in Netherlands.
From what I've heard from your story, I think that your best preparation for your internship was yourself, because I've got to know people that are from everywhere, that have studied everywhere, that have been in different international companies, and I think that the most established schools of architecture in the world, they just give you better tools, better chances to make your projects. And by that I mean probably they give you, I don't know, more printing rooms, more 3D printers, more labs to make better models. And maybe in the less established school, you don't have all that infrastructure, let's say. But I know so many people that are successful and got to work in leading companies from small university just because they're driven by a passion. So I think you, from your story, you've sound a very passionate person about what you have been doing, because I've noticed myself when I was here in Frankfurt, the university was it's considered the University of Applied Sciences are kind of like the second line university in Germany, because there is also the official university. And but just by having all these lasers, by having this infrastructure, and I was also very passionate, and I saw that there is the opportunity here to find a job. For me was a very exciting, because back in Italy the economical situation wasn't good, and I was pushing myself to do better project. I was very passionate, and as you did, I did extra competitions, I did research on different companies.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the one of the notions that I'm very interested in is comfort zone. And so I think, it's great to have equipment and facilities and resources. That's something else, but they are not the only thing you need, right? So usually, if you are too comfortable, or if you have too many facilities, or if it's too easy, let's say, then that doesn't necessarily increase motivation or effort, right? So I have identified that moments when you kind of go outside of the comfort zone, either that's during studies or later in the career, that you have less resources, maybe you have less support, but usually the motivation or the way, the satisfaction that you may get from a result that you achieved without the support or without those resources can make you feel more motivated and appreciate the result better.
But no, but what I mean is not of course. I mean, it's like when you used to work with less on your disposal, when you get more, you appreciate it twice, because you have this. For example, at my home university, it was so many people, it was almost impossible to use 3D printers or laser cutters, because there is such a long line. And when I arrived in Germany, it was so much easier. So I did, in people here were a little bothered, because they were like, yeah, you need to pay, I don't know, 50 cents a minute if you use it, and it's too expensive. And for me, I was so passionate that I didn't care about the price. I wanted to make stuff. So I would spend the money that usually people would spend in drinking out into a model or into a printing something and I think that the passion of a person or of a creative, especially, it's your biggest asset. Because if you as you said, if you're too comfort, and if you're lazy, and if you're not passionate, even if they put you in the AA or Harvard school, you won't become so good as you could be otherwise. And but how was the process at OMA? Because I've never got the chance to work in a big company, also because I didn't apply enough, because I always wanted also to be to I don't know to I got into a job here where I was paying good enough to be completely independent, and for me that was great. So how is the process in such a world's leading established company?
I think I think there are several parameters, right? And there is a way that you experience it when you are an intern, or when you are an architect, or when you are a senior. So at that time, I was having my internship. I experienced it in a very very nice and very exciting way. But there is also, I think, I would distinguish OMA from any other big office. In the sense that I think the magic of OMA has been, and that's what I experienced working there, in the process. I think they have a very very exciting process through which they are doing mainly the concept design, I would say, but basically all the phases. So it's very competitive, it's very intense. But it's quite horizontal when it comes to the creative process. I say quite because it can never be in such a big office. It will always be top down. But let's say if we would have to rank the offices from which is more egalitarian, let's say, in the creative process, then I would say that they were doing quite well. So as an intern, you would feel that you are part of the booklet, of the presentation that you would produce, but also through the creative process, through the options. And so that's the one parameter that was very exciting and that is difficult to find in offices, like being asked to do an idea and being asked to being challenged basically to contribute. I find it very exciting. And the second very exciting parameter, in my opinion, was the prosperity that they had towards the project. So basically, maybe you would not get paid very well. Maybe you would complain about many things. But when it came to the project, there was no budget for them. There was no cheapness. So if you would need, let's say, materials to make models in order to show a cool concept that you would have, then they would be available to you. And so basically, the way that they approach projects is very rich, and I think that shows in the ideas that they generate. They work a lot with models, with diagrams, with collages, many things that they don't get published, but that they are very important during the creative process. And of course, there is this intellectual dimension that basically results from research from Harvard or research within the office, and from the critical attitude. There was a very, very exciting language spoken in terms of architecture. It was not just some obsessions or some banal kind of indexes of ideas that you would just test. It was, very often they would also repeat concepts. They would also do strange things, but even those would come out of this very exciting process. So what I kind of what I was left with when I finished my internship was a lot of excitement, a lot of ways to do things that I saw, and the passion about architecture, an applied passion, and then I think I didn't find that those qualities necessarily in other offices that I work afterwards, and so that I got to appreciate them even more in the future.
I believe that, because it sounds, you can see also from their projects, the work they produce, that it's a result of sort of natural evolution. And what happened after your internship there? How did you manage to stay? Did you stay in the Netherlands, or did you go back, or how did you go further on?
Yeah, so basically after 1 year, after 2 internships, I was really eager, and I really missed studies. So I went back to my university to basically do the 5th year, 1 year later. So I was on the 6th year, but I had all the 5th year to finish, which was very exciting. I did come in contact with some very important professors, important for me, like Zis Kotionis or Lois Papadopoulos or Kostis Pangiris, people that are known in Greece, but mostly people that would be really really nice into giving the floor to the students, into giving you the critical attitude and the kind of multiplicity of ways in which you can express certain ideas, right? So that I first met in OMA, let's say, and then it so happened that I worked with the right professors, and I kept on working on that line, and so then I was trying to define my approach, let's say, or trying to evolve the way that I work. But basically, yes, that was my graduation year. I was also lucky to be assistant to the professor, to this Kotionis, in that second semester of that year. So to get a bit involved into the teaching process, let's say. We also did the big research project on the last semester, parallel to the final project. And that was also a very exciting moment. Research, I think, it's very exciting when it's done. When it's done on topics that you really like to explore, right? So it was a very exciting year, the last year of studies. Although it was in the middle of a crisis, although it was in the middle of a very misery, very negative period, 2013-14. Also, the right-wing politics would come up strong at the time, and the university that I first saw in very prosperous, very exciting condition had become a bit limited. Many exciting young professors would have been fired back then or discontinued their contracts. And so it was a difficult but still exciting year, the graduation year.
And how did you, when you graduated in this crisis, you were already focused on going back to the Netherlands to continue your career, or what was your plan?
Yeah, it was an interesting moment. I always used to work during the summers in Creta, so in restaurants and hotels, and just spending the summer and by working at the same time. So that summer, before that summer, my partner Karolina, she was already having an internship at Kengokuma in Japan, and she came back for the summer to Creta to spend together, and they offered her an extension so she could go back there. And at the same time, they also offered me a position, an internship position at Kengokuma. So we were in a dilemma. At the same time, that summer, we did our proposal for the Guggenheim Museum in Helsinki, which was quite an intense collaboration between us. It was also a binding moment between us professionally. And so that was a critical moment, decision that we had to decide basically if we would go for this very exciting experience in Japan, or if we're gonna pursue something in Europe. And so basically, the experience in Japan would have been also an investment from ourselves, because Japanese offices, they didn't pay, or they pay very few. So then we decided to come back in Rotterdam, because I had these few savings from work in the summer. And actually, I also got a bit saturated in terms of meeting new place. I wanted to settle somewhere, and I wanted us to start doing projects that could lead us somewhere. So basically, as I said in the beginning, I always wanted to start my own office or our own office. So basically, we decided to come back in Rotterdam, which we did, and then we started working again in offices here. I worked at Shift Architecture and Urbanism, very exciting emerging office here in the Netherlands. And
what is it called again?
Shift Architecture and Urbanism.
Okay. And beside that, you kept doing competitions.
Yeah, so basically in 2015, after another internship at Shift, I was basically unemployed for 3 months. I was searching for another job. And we did the Bauhaus competition, the Bauhaus Museum in Dessau. And that was, I saw it as an opportunity for me to basically put together what I have learned, or what. So basically, I did it myself in these 3 months, together with my partner, which helped after work, because she was already working at the time. And that was a turning point, because first of all, we decided to do 2 submissions, not 1, because we had 2 ideas and we could not eliminate one of 2. But also because it was a lot of work done basically by one person, 1.2, if you consider the time invested by Karolina. And we got shortlisted in the second phase, and we went to the SAU, and all the shortlisted architects were there in the event, and they guided us around. And basically, that was the first time that we won something. It was nothing big. We lost the competition in the end, but that showed what there is behind a competition, let's say. So that gave us a lot of motivation and a lot of confidence, let's say. And so then by summer, I started working at Meccano. We lost this competition, although we got in the second phase. And there there we decided to do the competition for the library in Varna, basically that summer. And that was a project, let's say, in which we managed to to assemble a team of 5 people working after work, of course, and on the weekends. And so that year we won that competition, and basically that gave a lot of satisfaction, in the sense that you lose so many. Like, I think I had lost like 25 competitions back before the.
Yeah, but that's like training, it's like you cannot go to the gym and lift 100 kilograms on the bench press the first time. You need to fail a lot of times before that. I
agree. I mean,
you said, yeah.
I personally never thought that any of the competitions that I did or that we did in different configurations, I never thought that's a waste of work. Basically, I think that's the first realization someone has to do to keep doing competitions. I thought that it's always an improvement, and it's always an experience, and of course it's a portfolio. To the point that when I was applying for my second internship at OMA, for example, I didn't have any academic projects in the portfolio. It was only competitions, and I think that got appreciated by the employers.
I think that I like to repeat this way of saying that every overnight success is the result of 10 years hard work. So, or at least something like that. So you have the experience to work under stress, to also deal with the loss, maybe keep going. So I don't think that it's a failure. For example, I have also read a book about Mies van der Rohe, where he says that when he was moving to the US, he had a library of 500 books, but he took only 50 that were useful. But he said the other 150 weren't useless. They were just useful to understand what doesn't work. So I think there is no junk creativity or no junk projects. You just make and learn out of it. And as you said, you build a portfolio. So if you go to a client and you show you have 20 projects, maybe he likes some of them. It's it's always a plus for yourself. But I was wondering, because I have had this idea of making competitions always and to put up together a team. But I think that, how did you manage to work in a team where there is no clear boss? Because for example, how do you take a decision? I mean, you need to be whether lucky or somehow lead those people towards your project or your ideas, or to put the ideas together in a very democratic way. How was that? Because in office you have the hierarchy, so when there is a conflict, maybe there is the manager of. How do you deal with this? I'm just curious.
That's a very good question, and I think that's a very important part of how we have been doing this, because you are right. I mean, you have to, if you imagine that you do, for example, 3 or 4 competitions per year, which are done on the weekends or after work, so in very harsh decisions for everybody in the team, then indeed, I always thought that you really have to find people, but also motivate them. And important is that you don't do just one competition, but you do a second one and a third one with the same people, and you build the expertise together. But most of the people then, because we would keep losing, they would just do 2 or 3 competitions and then they will drop. So very early on, I thought that motivation is a very important parameter. So you have to motivate yourself and the team, and motivation. Then, if you analyze it further, then probably it means excitement. So you do have to excite people and yourself and the team. And the third element is, let's say, the expectation that you do it thinking that you can win it, right? So you don't do it just to do it; you go for the prize. And so, analyzing these 3 parameters, it was clear that it has to be a teamwork, that it has to be a way of deciding which is democratic, let's say, so that everybody can keep motivated and believe in it, and keep participating. But I think it's very helpful, the Dutch way of working. I was early on in my studies very excited about the Super Dutch generation, and by working in the Netherlands, I also start exploring it firsthand, which is basically the idea of working with options and not with a single idea. So if you work with a single idea, that means that single person must have this single idea and that imposes to the rest. But if you work with options and if you test ideas, then it helps you create a process which is evolutionary, let's say. So you don't have big decisions, you don't have few big decisions to make, but you have many small decisions, right? And I think that helps a lot. I think historically it's something that is attributed to Elias Zegelis in his teaching at AA and in the Berlage. It said that he could inspire students to do great job, and then it was never clear at the end whose idea was which idea. So, and I think that's done through working with ideas, with options, with testing things, discussing in every moment of the process. And so basically, I think it's mostly about the process.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of proceeding. And I was curious, but that time you were working at Meccano and doing it after work. But was the Architects for Urbanity already a thing, or was it still you were still like, let's say, just a team of people? How was that?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. Like, it's a bit difficult to trace it, but basically, I started doing competitions, I said, from the second year with a group of friends. Then they would get tired and drop, and they would find some other friends and some professors that would participate. And then when I met Karolina early on in the third year, she started participating in competitions with us. Then she would get more present into these competition submissions, like in Guggenheim, Guggenheim Museum, for example. It would be mostly her doing the final presentation, and so on. There would be people coming and going, and I would keep kind of collecting this experience and these files and these ideas, let's say. And so when we did the Bauhaus competition, it was already a moment where we thought we are very close to starting an office when we got in the second phase. And I basically, during my studies, I got very interested in the idea of in the notion of urbanity, which, as it seems, it's a very old notion. It's a word that they were using. There are a lot of mentions of this notion in the pre-industrial era, in the 17th and 18th century, and that is not very very popular today. But that I found it very exciting. So we knew that we want to start an office, and we knew that we want to be around the notion of urbanity, let's say, which you understand as a total engagement with the city, right? You don't see a plot just as a plot, or a neighborhood just a neighborhood, but you see it as part of the whole network of the city, in few words. And so basically, we started already using the name Architects for Urbanity in our submission for the Bauhaus. Back then, there was no office. And then when we did the Varna Library, we had two team members that did a competition for the first time with us. We had a friend that was that had done a couple of other competition with us, and there was me and Karolina. And so basically, after we won the competition, we decided with Karolina to start the office formally because we were expecting to get a contract and the next phases. And then we proposed to our collaborator Marina Kunavi to join us into establishing the office. So three of us then would officially set it up, find a space, all this, register the company, and basically dive into a new round of competition projects, trying to get even more projects, right? Doing acquisitions and setting it up properly, let's say.
But are you registered architect in the Netherlands, or some of you?
Yeah, Netherlands, Bulgaria, and Greece, basically.
And you are registering in those three countries as an architect.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the process behind getting the license, let's say, in the Netherlands and in Greece and in Bulgaria? Is it, when you have it in one country, is it easier to get it in the other two because it's European Union, or?
Yeah, it's actually a discussion that was very, very annoying for me because I'm generally, I don't like so much bureaucracy and all these old school kind of applications and documents, but basically it's a bit different in every country. I first registered in Bulgaria because we had to sign the building permit application for the library in Varna. And there it was a fairly simple process. They basically needed to prove at least 2 years of experience in another office, which I had. And that was it, with a couple of documents. In Greece, it involves basically an interview with a jury that the Chamber of Architects kind of puts together, and then that was it. And then in Netherlands, it's also a different system. I think for young architects now, they change it. They have to do 2 years of internship, or like they have to register hours for 2 years. But for me, for architects that are registered in their own country, depending on the country, I think it was almost automatic. So having been registered
in Bulgaria, you needed just to prove you have worked in an architectural office, no matter if it was in Bulgaria or somewhere else.
Yeah, and of course that you had a proper diploma, qualified diploma, etc. But
okay, that sounds also, because this I always try to combine in my chats with the guests the theoretical, let's say, or the cool part, which is about how it's the process, how is the creativity, but I always try to also join a little with the practical parts of it, the bureaucracy, to explain, if you want to do something, like what you have done, what are the challenges in these other spheres, let's say, too. And when you were starting the company, did you quit your job and just put your efforts completely? So you started the company officially after you got the contract with the Library of Varna, right?
Yeah, so basically after the announcement of the results, there was a period of few months where nothing happened. Then there was an event in Varna which we attended with the mayor when they gave us the award, let's say. Basically, I think the mayor told the media that he gave us a contract for the next phase, but we got a paper, like a certificate, that we won the competition. But that was fine because we met the client, the board of the library, and the board of the municipality. And we also tried to excite them more by presenting the projects and getting to know them. And then there was a few more months where nothing happened again, and then we tried to push them to get a contract, what they promised basically to media, and what was mentioned in the brief. And then we did sign a contract, and then over the summer of 2016, and then we had a lot to do. We basically had to quit our jobs, find an office space, set up an office, understand all the bureaucracy that involves doing projects abroad, and how you invoice and how you pay the VAT and the taxes. It was basically a whole new world that we had no idea about, and we don't teach at school, and that we had to go through by researching, asking colleagues, and talking, and basically very exciting, but also very stressful and difficult.
And what was you can tell me something that's approximate. It's like, what was the initial investment you needed to do to set up your office? And you are 3 people in your office, 3 partners, from what I understood, right?
Since 2018, we are 2, me and Karolina. But basically, to start, the initial investment was, depends what you want to do. I mean, if you want to do a very luxurious, high-class office, maybe another discussion, but was around 2,500 euros to 5,000 euros, so not that much, let's say. Of course, back then we also got our first payments for the project, and then part of our first payments we invested into furniture and computers and software. So yeah, I mean, it's a considerable cost, let's say, that you have to. It's a considerable investment that you have to put in the beginning, but indeed that's why you do it when you actually get a contract, when you get a project. So there is no point to really make that investments before that moment, although you can do competitions or you can try to find clients without doing that investment initially in the first place. So I think the conclusion is that it's not a big deal to start an office. It's more important to manage to find projects and clients and basically do a great job. I think that's the most where the most attention should go, rather than the setup itself, which takes a bit of time, takes a bit of stress, takes a bit of effort, but basically it's not a big deal.
I've watched, I don't remember anymore if it was there is a movie, and there is a Netflix documentary abstract about Björke Ingels, who is also a very established, world-renowned architect. And in this movie or show, he was saying that for every architect, the very hard moment is to get the first building done. And then, because the first time when you don't have a background, nobody is willing to take the risk to give you an assignment to build a building. And I was wondering, since you have won the competition of the Varna Library, which is a huge project, so for the people who are listening, if you don't know about the project, you can check it on the website of Architects for Urbanity, or just Google it and you'll find a lot of pictures about it. Did that help you to find further clients, further assignments, even maybe not always through competitions? Did that change a lot your perspective on that point of view?
Yes and not at the same time. Basically, it brought quite a lot of media recognition and a lot of excitement, but it did not bring new projects by its own, let's say. So, but it also depends a bit like what you want to do, because for us, the first 2 years, the most important thing was to actually do these next stages of this project. We're talking about a 28,500 square meters public building, which in itself is a very difficult task for a team of 5 people. Back then, I was 26 years old, with very little experience in later phases. So basically, there was a lot of energy invested into doing the project, the design development and the technical study and get the building permit. So that kept us quite busy and quite focused. And of course, at the same time, we would do competitions as always. And we would start a very important collaboration for us with the office City Foster here in Rotterdam, with which we are doing 3 projects in Albania, 2 of which are in construction. So basically, to answer your question, it helped a lot winning the library and having some attention in the media and among colleagues, but it's not that it brought clients or projects. You still have to go after acquisitions and try to get those projects. Yeah.
And how many people are you now in the office? Are still
now with
small?
The pandemic, we are very small. Basically, usually we try to keep 5 people. I think 5 people is a very good number to feel that you are a team. But basically now it's changing with the pandemic. Yeah, so we are 3 to 5, depends which time.
And by keeping it that small, let's say, because as you said, you have had this period of times where you were very busy and also, let's say, side tasks which are not directly connected to architecture. By keeping it that small, are you still able to focus a lot on designing, or how do you manage that part? Because I know that a lot of people who are transitioning from being employees to be employers, they sometimes have so many side tasks to do that the design part gets marginal more and more.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right. But for me, there is more design than there is administration. I try to do all the administration and non-design stuff very efficiently and fastly, because that's nothing that it's pleasant or exciting, and try to focus most of the time and effort into design, basically. So
and yeah, and so I've seen on because when you go through the website of your studio, of your firm, you have the overview page about you and Karolina, and there is you are also lecturing, right? Like you have been invited for lectures.
Yeah, lectures I think are very very exciting and very interesting activity, in the sense that first of all you get a chance to talk about your work, right, and meet new people, and but it's also a very nice opportunity to make a self-critique and reflect, because we are usually designing, making submissions, presentation, booklets. We are really absorbed in the work, and when you are giving a lecture, basically you have to zoom out, organize what you're gonna show, what you're gonna say, and I find it very very interesting activity in the way that it makes you think about your work, and basically it's also a very exciting moment for an architect to travel, to present, to meet, to hear positives, negatives, get feedback, and go back in the office with new motivation.
So where have you held your lectures so far? Where have you been lecturing?
Well, of course, now with the pandemic is not something relevant. But recently, I gave a lecture in a webinar in North Macedonia, invited by Sara Simoska, a very young and interesting colleague. I was in December in the University of Warsaw, and before that we have lectured for the students that are about to get registered as architects here in Rotterdam. We have been in the building. We've been lecturing the building forum in Sofia a few years ago. 2 years ago, I lectured in the Share conference in Sofia as well, and yeah, there have been a couple of other events. But basically, it's nice to get invited and participate into those events, I think.
And do you think that those preparing for those events have created help you to be more aware of your work? Because I've noticed a lot of times when you're producing something, you do the process in your team or in your mind, if you want to say, if you're working alone. But when you need to explain something to someone else, you need to make it more logical than actually is. So did that help you to be more aware of your work so far? And did this awareness, if you have gotten more awareness, help you for the future projects that you have done after those lectures?
I'm not sure if I understood your question, to be honest.
Yeah, I was asking you if you were by lecturing other people on your work, if that helped you be more aware of your projects, of what was your process, because while doing your project, you're more into the zone, into the process, into the creating, into the concept. And when you look back after a while and you need to explain it also to other people, did that made you more aware of your process? And by being more aware of your process, were you better in your next project?
Yeah, definitely. I think that helps a lot. I mean, when you lecture for students, for example, you do have to provide them with some input, right? You cannot just PR or show your projects or show off, or you have to go there in a modest way and give them something. So basically, you have to also go through your work and identify what is relevant, what is radical, what is worth sharing, what is educational, what provides people with knowledge. And of course, those are the nice lectures. Then you have also lectures that are more business conferences. And then, of course, yeah, you go a bit more flashy, trying to promote your work. But I think it makes you think. Indeed, it makes you reflect. It makes you make your self-critique, and definitely, it makes you think more when you do the next project. In advance, you think which qualities you want to put into the project, and then therefore which qualities you want to share, either that's in a lecture or a workshop. Yeah, you have to create content and quality to be able to communicate it to people, and that being worth their time.
And I was wondering, because you are two people basically leading the office, you and Karolina, are there moments where you have conflictual discussions about your work, or how? Because as you said, it's a sort of an evolutionary work. So when you have an internal discussion about a project and the development of an idea, are you still managing to be to hello?
To agree, you mean?
Yeah, to agree to hold your ideas loose, so that if you say that you consider her idea bad, or she considers your idea bad, that you don't get into a conflict.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's a good topic, and I think that's not a topic that I can really analyze because I'm just into it, so I don't really think about it that much. But We are luckily we are complementary to each other as personalities and in the way that we understand architecture. So that doesn't create many structural clashes to begin with. Of course, in the creative process, you always have arguments, and that they are welcomed, of course. And through arguing, you also have to build arguments, and those arguments then are ideas that get into the project. So there is nothing special there. I think we tend to talk too much in the office, so to discuss a lot, and we tend to discuss always on material that we have prepared. So we never just discuss, but we do, then we think, then we discuss, then we think, and then we redo. So in that sense, the process helps you to not conflict so much. It's more about adding, changing, and improving, and deciding basically. So once you have your options laid, once you discuss them, then usually the strongest one make themselves present, let's say. So usually it's a very soft, smooth process in terms of deciding. Not much to conflict there.
And from what I understood, you are also partners not only architecturally and business, but also in your personal life, right?
Yeah.
So is it? Do you have a? Is it a? So can you divide kind of your working time from your free time, or there is no, like, you're always into your? You can combine personal, let's say, personal time talking about architecture, or you try to concentrate on other stuff of your life when you're not at the office and not working, or how do you manage that aspect?
Yeah, but I also don't think about that much, to be honest. It just happens. But basically, we tend to talk about personal stuff when we are at home or when we are not in the office, and we tend to not talk about personal stuff, but only about professional when we are in the office. And then, of course, you get a bit of the when you are into the other. So sometimes we discuss work at home, but then it's very efficiently. And if we really have to decide something or to arrange something, so basically we don't sit home talking about architecture necessarily, and we almost never talk personal stuff when we are at work. And I think that's important to fine tune. So it's a work in progress, of course. But personally, I never had a problem with architects, hanging out with architects. Like sometimes I hear colleagues saying like I would never make a project with my partner, or I don't like going out and having drinks with architects. I see where they come from, but for me it has been always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to hang out with colleagues, to have drinks, and I never thought that working with my partner in life would be a problem. I just thought that there for sure will be some aspects that we have to work on and fine tune. So the
Yeah, I
starting
think
point was not
it's,
negative.
yeah, you have this basically this common ground to start and build up on. So it's I think it's even an advantage. And so I think we have had a very 36-degree around discussion. I want to, because it's also for the people, they don't know, but we record a podcast on Sunday afternoon, so then I don't want to take too much away from your personal time away. I wanted to ask you like a last question. What for you? It's because you have you are a very experienced competitor in the architectural field, because you have taken part of many architectures. So if you would say, what is the most, what is the, what for you are the things that makes you win a competition? So if you want to give an advice for the people who are listening, what they should focus on if they want to one day dream to win a competition, if you have any clear idea or advice you would give?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think first of all, I think I'm too young and too inexperienced to be able to give advices. But if I would have to talk about it, I think like when I was younger, before winning the library, for example, there were moments where I was trying to think tricks or ways to easily win a competition. So there were discussions about how can you find this amazing idea that will make everybody crazy and you will win it. And so when we won the library, which actually happened after many lost competitions, after many attempts and many disappointments, I realized that basically to win a competition, you need to keep on doing competitions, so not give up, keep improving, and basically put a lot of hard work and a team. I think it's a teamwork. Architecture is basically has always been a teamwork, and so for me, it's very hard work. It's very modesty in the sense that you have to accept failures. You have to accept that many times you are ignored, you are rejected, you are even when you have a good idea, maybe sometimes it's not communicated well. So you have to improve the way that you communicate your concepts. So basically, I think there are no easy ways to win competitions. There are no tricks. It's just hard, persistent, consistent, and ongoing work on that aspect. Let's say, but competitions are only one way to explore architecture, right? So maybe they are not for everybody. Maybe some people could unfold their talent and ideas through research or through commissions or through working experience. Certainly, it's a very painful direction, but can be very rewarding for sure.
I think that's still a good advice. It's a mindset. You need to be persistent, as you said, and learn from your failures and keep improving.
There was also a nice. I mean, there have been also, there have been some very interesting competitions through history. One of my next research projects, I think, would be like how competitions have evolved, right? But I was also very surprised when I was working at OMA. The only times that you would see Kulhas being in the office or being engaged with a team would either be a competition project or maybe some important research project, or like the Biennale that they were doing at that time. So that gave me, it was interesting that a big success for architect, let's say, towards the end of his career, he would still be interested in competitions. So I think they can be, if you do it properly in a way, it can be a constant stream of excitement. You always do something new, a new context. There's a deadline, so you have to start. It needs to have a beginning, a start, and an end, right? And we used to do also these internal booklets in the office. So when we do a competition, we have basically an InDesign. It's our internal document where we put everything. So that keeps everybody in the team updated, and that keeps the process kind of running. And in the end, we just wrap it up and make it a booklet for ourselves. And so then we put them next to each other. There are ways to keep the excitement going, let's say, and to try to capture the knowledge that you generate through them. As we said, then it's not a lost effort. It's just an ongoing thing that you do. You keep doing, and then sometimes you win. Most of the times you lose. In the future, they can also be invited competitions, so the chances can increase by time, of course. So, but it's definitely not the only way to approach architecture.
Of course. I'm very, very thankful because I got to basically get to know you through this conversation we have had. I think that it's you were super inspiring, and I've noticed that you are super passionate and in love with what you do, and I'm very thankful that you decided to give a chance to my podcast, to give this talk that I'm sure the audience will find very interesting and very inspiring from themselves too. Every guest gets the last minutes to give the audience the shout out where people can get in touch with you or explore more of your work and architectural projects, if you can tell more.
Yeah, I also want to thank you very much. I wish you a lot of luck with the podcast. I think you are in a very interesting direction. It's very wide, the spectrum that you are covering through the podcast. And I think if you put the right amount of effort and consistency, I think you're going to do great. And I'm looking forward to see the next episodes, of course. As for the social media, I think people can just search for Architects for Urbanity on Facebook or Instagram or on the internet. It's not difficult to find us if you are interested about our work. But yeah, that's all I would like to say.
I will add down to the description the links of the Instagram page of Irgen, of Architects for Urbanity, of their website. So people, if you want, go check directly on the links. And as I got now very excited about your work, and I'm using this last also minutes to tell you that it's the first time I have the chance to see one side of a story from the grounding of an office. And maybe in the next episode, if Karolina has time and will, she can also come on the podcast and tell her side of the story of Architects for Urbanity. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how she will tell the story.
Definitely. And I would also be very curious to listen to that.
So, Karolina, if you're listening, you know that you have the invitation. And for the people who are listening, thank you. You can support the podcast, which is totally free for you, by just sharing it with your friends, by subscribing on the platform you're listening. And you can follow the podcast on the different social media, which are Instagram at TCI Podcast, and on LinkedIn and Facebook, the pages The Creative Insider. So thank you again one more time, and thank you for your time, and bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much. See you soon. You too.
Just like that. Just like that.